Hey, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you are listening to another exciting episode of
Coaster Kings Radio.
Today's episode is being recorded from our new house, which we haven't technically moved into till tomorrow, but we're recording here early. So if the sound quality is a little different, if the room sounds a little more hollow, that's because we're recording for the first time
We're in
a
our
different
dining
place.
room.
We also have a new Coaster Kings headquarters office that we're building, but that's all not ready yet. Which we'll probably start recording more future episodes. Anyway,
Yeah, by the next episode, we should be up in the office. Right now, we're in the dining room, which is pretty much, for all intents and purposes, the dining room is finished. We just have to hang artwork.
yeah, we actually built a bar in here, so we're drinking our first mixed drinks in our new house, which are espresso martinis to keep us nice and awake for today's topic.
Yeah.
Speaking of today's topic is Phantasialand. So Germany's famous theme park for putting a whole lot of entertainment in a very little space. We just went back late July, and our first visit together was in 2018, and so this was about 3.5 years later. So it was good to kind of see, like, well, what do we think of the rides now, and what is F.L.Y all about? You know, the new Vekoma launch flying coaster. So that and more, we'll just kind of run around the park today and kind of see what we think of each attraction, each area, where the park shines, what the park needs to work on. I mean, I guess most people know that Phantasialand is just a genius park, so there really isn't much criticism, except for obviously there's a couple things that we can still discuss on a global scale. Where should we start?
Well, our day actually started in Klugheim, in that rear entrance with that parking lot area. So I think it's not the first thing that we rode that day, but I think it is a good place to start with Phantasialand, because I think in the last 5 years, I think most people, when they think of Phantasialand, that's definitely something they think about is Taron. So I think that would be an interesting, useful place to start personally.
Okay, fair enough. So on this trip, Sven's not here right now recording with us, but Sven took us in his car. We drove from Belgium that morning to Phantasialand, and the cool thing about Phantasialand is how small it is. So in order to park, you have to drive under the park, which is a very small tunnel, really. And then you park in like some farmer fields in the back. And that's also where the mystery entrance is, which is over next to Mystery Castle and Klugheim. According to the park, Klugheim is a subsection of Mystery, but Klugheim is so massive that I almost feel like that is the main area.
Yeah.
As where, but I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that Mystery is the overall theme. You also have River Quest, whose new entrance is located within Klugheim, so it's technically sort of part of Klugheim. But due to COVID-19, the entrance to the ride was reopened on the mystery side of the midway. So it's
so
a little weird. They make it really complicated for a park that literally is the size of a couple football fields. It really is like one of the smallest parks in the world. It's kind of crazy. Like when you drive up to it, it's really not much. But that's what's also so impressive about Phantasialand, is they're able to fit all these amazing attractions in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
So the real question is, how did Taron hold up compared to what we thought of it the first time?
The biggest difference between our rides on Taron 3 years ago and our rides on Taron this year is Velocicoaster happened.
Yeah. And
we've been riding Velocicoaster quite a bit since it had its soft open in May of this year, and then its grand opening the first week of June, by which point we'd already ridden it quite a bit. And remember, riding it was like, you think about Phantasialand and Taron fondly in that context, because these rides look very similar and are the same ride system, and Taron has long been considered among the best of the Intamin multi-launch LSM coasters, so that's sort of the bar. And I think it's safe for us to say that
the bar has been raised by
Velocicoaster.
Yeah, one of the main things is, and I always thought that Taron kind of needed to have an inversion, because it's just, Taron really is 2 fast launches and then just a bunch of airtime and lateral transitions. But it lacks, in my opinion, for a ride that long, like an extra element that is not just an airtime hill or just a switch track.
The ride doesn't even really feel like it has elements. It feels
just has
like
the same thing, kind of
mishmash of turns and drops. It's like,
which is really impressive because of the scenery that's built around it.
Yeah.
But having ridden Velocicoaster now, which does nothing twice really, inversion, different kind of inversion, airtime moments, and then the second launch on Velocicoaster is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than the second launch on Taron. suddenly I started realizing that Taron just lacks some of the things. Like a giant drop on a top hat is not a part of Taron. You know, Taron's highest part of the ride is a maneuver of 3 zigzags back down the hill. There is no actual like giant drop or anything on that ride. And maybe it was with the intention to make it more family friendly. It's, you know, that's been Phantasialand's background with that area, is to be thrilled but to be approachable, which is why it doesn't have any inversions. But now I'm starting to notice that I definitely think Taron is not all that anymore. It's a really, really good ride. Really good ride, I must say that. But it is just not Velocicoaster level in my opinion.
Yeah. Feels like there should be, I think we've probably talked about this before, but after the second launch, when the ride reaches its highest peak, and it kind of does that like
the triple switchback.
There's like the zigzag down. It feels like there should be a barrel roll in there.
I agree.
With F.L.Y, they added barrel rolls, so I guess that's improvement.
Yeah, and I think that another big difference we discussed is Taron has 4 vehicle trains, as where the trains on Velocicoaster are 6 vehicles long. And the main difference there is that Velocicoaster then has the ability for you to get a much more different experience in the back or the front of the train.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
like
quite varied.
Like flying over the top of the top hat on Velocicoaster is quite a different experience in the back versus the front. So I feel almost all Taron's elements are kind of the same no matter where you sit.
Yeah.
So that is the big takeaway from this trip, is that Taron really dropped my rankings. In fact, it's not even in my top 3 in the park anymore.
Yeah, as far as, because of course we rode everything at Phantasialand, coaster-wise, and there were rides that we felt a certain way about going into our visit, that those opinions changed. Really, almost every ride feels like it either trended up or trended down based on our particular visit this time. The only exception being F.L.Y, because it was the only new coaster for us, but everything else either was like better than expected or better than we remembered, or maybe it fell a little flat compared to our past experiences, I think.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Phantasialand has a lot of really good rides, and which is also one of the reasons that Taron isn't even in our top 3. Which it's not speaking for the whole team; it's really just speaking for me, and I guess you too, Alex, right?
Yeah.
So there's just rides that I think deserve more recognition. That since we went to Phantasialand in 2018, we've done quite some traveling. We did another Europe trip. We did like 3 Asia trips. So we have a lot more modern exposure, including blitz coasters. I mean, we've ridden a couple of blitz coasters in China, including Steel Dolphin at Shanghai Haichang Ocean Park. That was really good. Ride. Not very intense, but it's one of those rides that like really covers the entire park, which is really cool. And then we did Dueling Dragons, the red side in Guangzhou Sunac Land, which is kind of like Taron when it comes to pacing, but it has inversions and it's really snappy, and the layout is a lot more original, I feel.
It's got that one inversion.
That one inversion starts with corkscrew and then like becomes like a barrel roll. It's super crazy and super fast.
It does this one maneuver that's hard to explain, but like in a great way.
Yeah.
Like, really, and it's right before, it's the finale of the ride, and you come out of that and you're like, whoa.
What was that? Cool. So yeah, overall Taron is a really, really good ride. Lengthy, fun, really nicely decorated.
It's a handsome ride, great presence.
Doesn't quite live up to what I remember it being.
Yeah, it doesn't feel substantial in the ways that it used to. And I think, you know, Sven has always liked Taron, but never agreed with us that, like, I don't think he ever liked it as much as we liked it, and now I feel like we kind of are on the same page with our opinions of the ride. Our opinion of it has kind of settled a little bit, but still an enjoyable ride.
I mean, while in the area, let's talk about River Quest. River Quest, we actually didn't ride this trip because the line was kind of long, and it was definitely busy at the park.
Yeah,
despite everyone needed to have a vaccine passport and the whole being a dark checkpoint and stuff, it was quite packed. But the weather was beautiful.
Yeah,
we had a great trip.
We actually didn't do water rides on this one, but we just weren't really feeling the water rides. They had some crazy long lines. The water rides did. I think they were longer. It was a hot day. The lines, I think, for the water rides were longer than a lot of the coasters, so it was kind of prioritized accordingly.
But I do like River Quest, so quick shout out to that ride. I know we haven't ridden it since 2018, but I think it's super cool how they were able to fold a major rapids ride in a very small space. Very Phantasialand, but just put a bunch of drops in it to make it work. Also in the area is Reich, which is the Vekoma family or / junior boomerang coaster. Very fun. It's in fact so well hidden that if you don't pay attention, you don't know it exists. It is literally just like
I kind of forgot about it.
it's just stuck in like a building that's
We're like,
between
oh, yeah.
River Quest, and it hovers in caves below, or trenches really below Taron. If you don't know where the entrance for it is, you may just miss that it even exists, which is kind of funny. Kind of shows you how nice the whole area is. Overall, area is obviously cool. The rock work is really impressive. Really cool to walk around because you have all those different levels. But that kind of counts for almost everything in Phantasialand. Everything kind of has that same like, wow, this is really, really cool how it's all integrated together. What should we do next? Should we move towards Wuzitan? Should we move towards Colorado?
I guess
China?
we'll talk about China for a second because we didn't do any of the rides in China. We did Geister Rickshaw in 2018, and that was cute, but it wasn't like something where it's not something where
Geister
you ride
Rickshaw
it
is
and you're
like
oh
Pirates
my
of the
God.
Caribbean means haunted mansion somewhere on the seas of Asia. For kind of how that went.
And then they have a Vekoma Madhouse there too, and really the highlight of the China area is just walking around there and like seeing the hotel. The restaurant there is probably like the top restaurant for the park.
And Lingbao is a really nice hotel.
Yeah.
But only problem during our visit with how busy it was, the lines for food were so out of control.
Oh my God, it was
We
crazy.
actually didn't eat the entire day there because
Yeah.
every time, well, actually at the end
We got
we got
ice cream.
but we went and looked for food almost all day because we were kind of hungry when we already got there because we were like, let's get to the park. It's 3 hour ride from
I
Smith's
think
place.
we kept thinking that the lines for food would get shorter, and they got longer.
It just kept getting longer.
At first I was thinking like, oh, it's lunch rush, and then it never recovered. The lines for food were just
Exactly.
brutal.
At one point, the bridge that goes from Klugheim/Colorado
Over to
all the way
Berlin.
to Berlin,
For
that had the
Mexico.
complete lines on it just for food.
It was hard to tell where one food line began for one restaurant and another one ended, almost like they backed into each other and were getting confused and intertwined.
And this is one of those parks where there literally is already not enough space to begin with. The midways are already kind of small because it's all so infinitely fine put together.
Yeah.
But then having like queues in the midways really made it pretty miserable. And another thing that didn't help was because of COVID guidelines, they were trying to do a lot of One Direction stuff. So you would have to go from Mexico and then cross through China around the back to get to Colorado Adventure.
Yeah.
But you had to walk all the way back to the Colorado Plaza first, which is actually like right next to Mexico. So you have to do like a big loop around just to get into the switchbacks and get to the
Getting
queue.
to Colorado Adventure is pretty funny.
Honestly, half the adventure of Colorado Adventure was getting to Colorado Adventure.
Right.
But it's worth the hassle because Colorado Adventure is an incredibly underrated mine train. I am not afraid to say that it's the best mine train.
Yeah, I would. For a lot of people, it's somewhere between Colorado or Big Thunder, Disneyland Paris. For me, it's no contest. Colorado feels so unique and fast.
Colorado has a
Forceful.
thrill edge to it that's almost scary because mine trains, you don't really expect whippiness, forces, banking. These trains are long, but there's like, if you sit in the back car, there's some severe airtime coming off of the top of that first lift. It's pretty impressive how that's done. And then the nice thing about Colorado is just like for everything else of Phantasialand, you really can't figure out the layout because that ride is just like hidden in like 3 show buildings, intertwined with chapas, intertwined with whatever area at the end. You know, we do the final helix.
It really is interesting the
It's
little
like,
show
wow.
building they have for it. I bet there was another ride in there at some point.
Well, they have 2 show buildings. They have the one that's pitch black and the one that's still partially open, and they kept it open on purpose.
It's got the ride like tunnels through all sorts of infrastructure that I'm pretty sure is older than any of the ride itself. And Chiapas is kind of the same way. They added to it.
Well, Chiapas is where the log flume used to be.
Yeah.
Like it used to be the same
Some
lift
of
hill.
the flume, the part of Chiapas that's like intertwined with Colorado follows the same path that the old Wild Basaban 1 and 2 used to follow, and then the new area of the flume that has like all the rock work and elevated stuff, that's all new. They did a fun job of staying true to like what was cool about the log flumes after like Colorado took such care in navigating around the log flumes back when Colorado was new. That was 96. It's nice that
now it's in reverse.
Chiapas feels elevated in the same way.
And interestingly, despite Colorado and Chiapas aesthetically being different themes, different areas, they work together very well, of course, because like a mine train through the canyons of the American West versus the canyons of a Mexican town, it actually kind of works out, and it's really nicely integrated together. But I think Colorado, the coolest thing about Colorado is from the midway, you really don't see the ride much. You kind of see that when it gets off the third lift hill and it does that little canyon helix, and then it goes through the rocks, and then it makes its way back towards the station where it does one final helix over the water into the brake run. That's kind of all you really see. The rest of the ride is completely hidden, but it's a long roller coaster.
The first lift hill out of the station, that's like hovering over the midway.
Yeah.
It goes over the roof of a building. It just disappears.
Yeah, the ride just kind of like takes off into Colorado.
You're like, well, that goes somewhere.
And it's just a really snappy, forceful ride. Like, there's, before the second or third lift, there's that weird bank where like you almost get thrown out of the freaking car sideways. Yeah. Really wild. But like overbanking, not like lateral, but like lateral in the opposite direction, where like it's almost like banked too much, so you hang sideways, almost falling out. Really, really interesting. Overall, great ride. It's in my top 3 at Phantasialand. I just can't get enough of how.
I love looking at it from. I love pulling up parks on Google Earth and trying to make heads or tails. Here you can see the 2 buildings, which don't look like they were built at the same time. These 2 buildings that Colorado occupies, and then where the log flume.
I think the most impressive part is that Colorado has so many entrances to buildings, but there's one building that is completely pitch black. Like, it's so dark in there, you literally do not know. I can't figure it out. It's like almost scary because like the ride's really forceful.
Yeah, there's one show building that kind of feels like a covering, and you see stuff in the infield, and there's one that's like dark.
But so dark that like you have to hold on because like
I think it's like they built like an internal, like a tunnel around the ride inside of the.
Yes, all the entrances are tunnels, so like the light pollution doesn't exist. Really, really impressive stuff.
Really fun.
So yeah, overall great ride.
I guess every time I ride that ride, it blows. I'm like, I somehow I allow myself to forget how amazing it is, because then every time we go and we ride it, I'm like, oh my god, this ride is so cool.
Let's talk Chiapas right next door.
Yeah,
Chiapas. The only thing I don't like about Chiapas, to start with that, is the restraints. It's really restrictive and painful.
Although I feel like that was the first time we'd ever ridden a log ride or water ride that had lap bars like that. I think now we're a little bit more used to the idea. Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls uses a similar restraint system. But yeah, Chiapas had like a really long wait, and we didn't need to get wet. We weren't like, it just wasn't a huge priority for us. So we were like,
the walkway between Mexico and Colorado was open.
Yeah.
Which goes literally through Chiapas. So there's a lot of really cool vantage points where you like see the boat all around, like next to you, above you, like splashing down right next to you. That was actually one of my favorite things about
right next
walking
to
around.
Talocan, and you walk up. You can even see it on the maps here. It's like this, almost like walking around in like a castle of sorts. And it threads around, and then eventually you poke out over by the big helix for Colorado, and then wind up on that midway with the theater that leads over to China and the entrance to Colorado.
That was really cool. And if you go to thecoastakings.com and check out our Phantasialand, the best of the best article, we'll have a couple cool shots in there where you can really appreciate Chiapas off-ride. Ways I've never seen the ride before. I mean, I guess the midway isn't always open, because last visit that midway wasn't open. So we had a really great time taking shots of Chiapas and Colorado from this auxiliary busy day midway that kind of winds through the rockwork. Mm-hmm. That was really, really fun. Chiapas overall, it's a really, really cool log flume. I would say most people consider it perhaps the best log flume in the world, unless you're like really attached to some of the South, which you shouldn't be. They may like Spice Mountain better. But I would say I would agree with that. It's incredibly well themed, bunch of different cool, unique modern features like sideway movements, backwards, a crazy
it's
big
essentially
drop.
A water coaster. Like,
really cool.
It definitely, if you don't count this as a credit, it definitely blurs the lines between credits and water rides. Just like the drop is very dramatic and roller coaster like.
It's massive. I feel like the largest part of the ride is the final drop. It just takes up the entire ride plot.
It's huge, and it's so
really
steep.
Large. It kind of dwarfs, in my opinion, and make it be rock work, but it kind of dwarfs like Dudley Do-Right, for example. Yeah. It's that massive.
Yeah. And so much of it is subterranean, I guess. They dug so deep to get the bottom of that drop, because then when you climb back up and then down again into the splashdown, you're like, wow, we were
way down.
It felt like we were several stories below the boom for the splashdown.
You did very far down, and you go kind of like rocket your way up the rock work.
It's such a dramatic. It's one of the best drops on just about any ride anywhere. Like, it is just so dramatic, and the forces when you bottom out and you pull back up into the airtime hill that leads to the splashdown. I mean, it's great.
Now, one thing I noticed on this trip in particular, and it could be due to the fact that Rookburg has no sidelines, and that we're just like really big Orlando people now because we live here now, is that the sideline game between the areas is actually not as strong as I remember it being.
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm in Mexico, I see Black Mamba. It's I'm not blaming the park. They did the best they could. It's impossible.
Yeah, there's
it's
a little more bleeding.
Everything hugs each other. But I'm in Mexico and I'm walking around. I'm like, there I see Tahoe in the sky, and I see Berlin, and I see Black Mamba.
Some stuff
towers.
is ambiguous enough. You got lots of brown, lots of earth tones.
At least it blends well.
The conversion.
Matamba is like the African family hotel. That literally, the majority of that building faces Colorado.
Some parts to me are like easier to forgive than others. That sort of ambiguous earth tone collision of Colorado, Africa, and Mexico areas, like
those really work together. But it's a contrast between Mexico.
But then once you have architectural elements and stuff that power clash with each other.
One place that did a pretty good job despite the clash is from China to Klugheim because of the lanterns. So like if you walk towards Klugheim, the lanterns are themed to Klugheim, but if you walk from Klugheim towards China, the lanterns have dragons, Chinese characters on them, which is really cool. That's actually one of the few
Plus the side
really,
of
really
Klugheim that faces China is not. It's not super. It's not as I feel like it's not as architecture heavy, whereas like the part of Klugheim that faces Mexico has a lot more of like the buildings and stuff, and then you start to really see the key architectural differences, and then it's like, okay, like I'm being taken out of the the area here,
and then there's old Berlin or Berlin right there as well, which is that's kind of like the cross points of things. A little awkward, but I mean,
we're just nitpicking.
All is forgiven at Phantasialand.
Yeah.
Next up, let's talk about Woozatown.
Wait, we didn't talk about Black Mamba, did we?
Oh, but not yet. No, we'll get there. I want to talk about Woozatown real quick.
Okay.
Because, so in Woozatown,
land of the woos.
This is probably the area I like the least this time around. It just feels like I wasn't being maintained very well.
I love how the show buildings for Temple of the Live Till and Winja's Woozatown are like literally two little yin Tetris. And yang, little pieces that fit together.
Well, yeah. So I guess we'll start with Winja's Fear and Force real quick. The cool thing right now, because of COVID, is that you wait outside, but then you just wait up the hill and then you walk straight in to like an emergency exit for Winja Station, and you walk straight to the station because they don't want you queuing inside. So at least it kind of like has some fresh air, and the line looks a lot longer than it really is.
It was a little odd because I'm so used to like when you're inside of that indoor area of the park, it's supposed to be full of people and very lively, but you can only go in there now if you've already ridden Winja's.
Yeah, or if you go to ride the
I guess if you go to ride the Tittle Tattle Tree. The Tattletale Tree. We have our own names for everything.
Tattletale Tower to ride.
Yeah.
But the area just kind of felt abandoned. I mean, this is a 3-story area. It has like a kiddie area upstairs, but like it wasn't even. I didn't remember how to get there. It's definitely
suffering in the era of COVID because it just doesn't feel like
it was also the first Phantasialand area to really be its own experience. Like Woozatown was kind of like the turning point. Like Colorado was a turning point when it came to like the park really dedicating to building immersive, high quality,
major
long record-breaking rides. You know, Michael Jackson's name was slapped all over it. It was a big deal. And then Woozatown was the first time they built an area that was like sidelines.
Because like they did Colorado in '96, and they did Mystery Castle in 2000, and that was like their first major like themed storytelling ride. And then Woo's and Winja's like that opened in 2002, and that was like
that was the first. That was like the
roadmap.
Like the ride was the land. And that's obviously what Phantasialand is now. It was like the rides.
Because from there they hit their stride. Because then they opened River Quest, which was in like 2003 or 2004, and then Africa.
I remember the ads for River Quest when I lived in Europe. It was cool. I was like, wow, they can do these drops with these things, and like the little, like the bats with the hands, like super.
That ride was so cool. Ahead of its time.
It was really cool.
So ahead of its time. Because I feel like you could sell River Quest to a park anywhere in the world, and it would be a huge hit. But it's already 20 years old.
So yeah, Woozatown now being the oldest like ride-is area kind of attraction.
The oldest of like some of the modern Phantasialand.
It really did feel like that, especially now that Rookburg exists, which I would sneak peek to later this episode. Is the most detailed area of the park.
Rookburg is
it's incredibly
outrageous.
Everywhere I look, there is a detail. It's stupid.
It's really the only other area I can think of besides Diagon Alley that like.
Zero sightlines.
Aside from like Pandora and the natural sightline effect of like just having forest
I
separating.
mean, if we're gonna talk like the parks with the best sightlines in the entire, or the 3 areas with the best sightlines in the entire world, as far as I'm aware, it's Pandora, Diagon Alley, and Rokeburg.
Rokeburg felt a lot like if you could imagine Diagon Alley, but it was instead
like
of
steampunk vibe,
yeah, but like with a different
right?
aesthetic. But it felt the way that Diagon Alley feels, where you like go into the tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. Like even like through a wall portal with brick.
It feels and it's a great feeling. It's not the same as like Avatar, where it's the forest that separates the sightlines. The fact that the sightlines are there and it's infrastructure. It's like civil infrastructure, like buildings and housing and stuff. And you know that there's other stuff on the other side of it, but it's so wonderfully
done.
Yeah. Not quite as simple to do as just putting forest between
Which
you
I guess
and your
Wusa Town
ride
technically
area.
is kind of like that too, because it's almost all indoor. But Wusa Town technically is outdoor as well and has that weird
the little monorail ride.
thingy,
It's got some kitty rides.
Goes by the walls of Rokeburg, but you have no clue unless that auxiliary entrance is open, which it wasn't during your trip. You have no clue. They're right on the other side of the walls of Flying Coaster.
Yeah.
Super impressive. And then you have Temple of the Lift Hill that's currently
Crazy Bats.
Okay, so like we used to not really hate the ride, but it's kind of one of those rides where you're like, well, whatever.
I really enjoyed my ride.
We really wanted to go ride it because we rode Revolution above Janland,
and we rode Vogel Rock
and Vogel Rock the same day. So we're like, we have to just ride Temple of the Lift Hill. And the line said 25 minutes, and we got in like 50.
Yeah.
It was really quick, and we're like, this is great.
And I was feeling nauseated.
The ride is so long. They run 3 trains.
I was like, I really just need to sit in the dark with some air conditioning. Because after our second ride on Fly, I was tapped out. I needed to. I needed a ride on Crazy Bats to settle my stomach.
So Crazy Bat is technically the name of what they have with the VR, which is I guess some sort of franchise. I don't really know much about it. However, the ride itself, I have much more appreciation for it now. In fact, I hope they never demolish it. Obviously, it's the next in line to get demolished. But what I hope they do is I hope that they keep the current ride, but give it a really expensive makeover.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, instead of keeping the show building dark, I want them to, like, take that show building and, like, change the inside and build it a world.
Yeah.
Like, make it a jungle, make it something that's, like, not just a dark coaster in the dark. Like, make it a coaster with, like, scenes and scenery and, like, world building. Because the building is massive. It's one of the largest indoor coasters in the world. It's really, really big. It has 3 lift hills. It runs 3 trains, but there's like easily 30 seconds between trains to the station.
Huge capacity.
You're like, oh, are they just running 1 train? Why is there no train here? But that's because the ride is so long. Force-wise, it's not super intense, but it just has a really long layout that you can't really figure out.
It's just so pleasant. Like, it's just such a nice, like, little
night ride.
Sensory break. Like, it's a little bit of sensory deprivation.
My favorite part is being somewhere in the show building and then seeing another train come into the show building because there's like lights on the first lift and you're like, shit, this building is big.
Yeah.
They look from space and the building is really big. It is a really big ride.
Yeah.
Opened as Space Center in the 80s, which was obviously a reaction to Space Mountain.
Yeah.
However, it would have more of a Battlestar Galactica vibe to it.
Then it became Temple of the Nighthawk after
Wusa Town opened. Yeah, and so and then it got a special soundtrack from InfoScore, and now obviously it's Crazy Bats. So we hope that the next incarnation of the ride, which would be a budgetary move, would just for it to be way more heavily themed. And I think that ride really has enough.
I think another question to ask about that ride is like, what's going to happen to the Hollywood boat ride, which is retired permanently, I think.
Right below. Well, here's the thing. It's just closed for the season, but honestly, they could just use that space below and build a new water ride.
Because I think it'd be fun for them. They could keep the ride. The ride probably has decent bones. It's a little shoot-the-chute type thing where you start at the top and you do this cute like 90-degree turn drop into the ride and it kind of sets it in motion. It almost has like this Pirates of the Caribbean feel where like the drop serves as your transition.
Kind of yeah.
But it's a perfect cross between Pirates of the Caribbean and the Great Movie Ride.
In a way, it's the most Phantasialand thing ever because old Phantasialand was very obsessed with like Hollywood and like America, almost like Bobby Allen was. But that's why the bosses were friends. But now Phantasialand has switched in such a different direction of like the mystery world building that the Hollywood tour feels like it's so not Phantasialand. Like get rid of it, you know.
I would just love.
I
would bet that the ride system is in good enough shape that they could just do another ride.
That's what I'm thinking. I want both those rides in that building to stay intact, upgraded.
Yeah.
But like really just like retheme the whole thing and make it something you know world building. Like spend a lot of money on scenery, but I think they can do a lot with that. I mean, I'm thinking like Droomvlucht. like the forest scene with like the little angels, like whatever, like little fairies swinging back and forth, like the rainforest scene.
God.
I'm imagining like build Droomvlucht, but make it in the roller coaster and have like this like lush green landscape and like the rainforest, and you know you can easily hide the big support sets to keep up the giant roof by making them big tall trees.
I could do a whole episode on how much I love Dreamflight.
You know what? I think we should just like ride Phantasialand and just recreate Temple of the Droomvlucht for them.
Temple of the Dreamflight.
That would be really, really awesome.
Oh my god, yeah. I just I think that's a direction that Phantasialand needs to go in. Is they need another dark ride. They've got Mouse au Chocolat, which we didn't ride this time, but it's a great ride. We really enjoy it. But I would just love for them to do like a Dreamflight or Symbolica level like e-ticket dark ride. That's just a traditional dark ride instead of tasking itself with the interactive aspect. And on that note, I would like to see Geister Rickshaw get remodeled. They used to have more dark rides. Like it was a more dark ride
heavy park
centric park,
which makes sense for a park
because they
like
had the
space.
Schwarzkopf mine dark ride back when they actually had a full mine area. Back in the day, Colorado Adventure was an expansion to the existing Wild West area of the park that was completely replaced by Klukheim, which is why Colorado doesn't really have its own area. It used to. In
fact, Colorado is rumored to become part of Asia. I mean, if you know the park, it makes complete sense. Like, in order to get to Colorado, you have to go through like a bunch of China
You can give that ride an Expedition Everest.
But yeah, the theme will be like K2 or Everest, and make it like a base camp theme.
Yeah, and it's golden. Like
it would work really well.
It's perfect, and that would give China a much needed roller coaster. So I wouldn't expect the whole like the Wild West thing to even be around, like that whole aesthetic, that little corner, really just because the Wild West area now just has Colorado and the little kitty drop towers that Colorado encircles at the end, and I think that's technically it for that area. It's so tiny. And even like the area around the Helix, when you take that walkway from Talocan that goes through Chiapas, and you come down, it's got all of those flags and stuff, the Mexican flags, the paper ones and all the different colors and stuff, and that's like in the third Lift Hill Helix drop infield of Colorado. That's all still Mexico. Then you pop out and it's like Wild West is this tiny little pocket.
The only thing that I could think of is if they were to just permanently relocate the entrance to Colorado and make it right on the other side of the bridge from where like you come through Chiapas. So if you were to like go take Chiapas over to like Montamba area, which is also where like the old theater is, I think that should be like the grand entrance to Colorado, because then it would all blend together. Then it would be like Colorado, Mexico, one thing. I think it works really well.
Oh, yeah, you can,
but as of right now, the way they route you, I don't know.
You wouldn't have to do much to make Colorado Mexico themed either.
I still think a mine train fits Colorado theme better than a China theme.
But it could
especially because the majority of the ride,
it just wouldn't be a mine theme.
Sure,
train.
But I still feel like the majority of the ride is intertwined with Chiapas. I feel like it still fits that theme better. Yeah. But
if it was still the American Southwest,
Phantasialand has shown that they can do pretty much anything they want to do. So whatever they do with it, I'm excited for it. But first, take a look at Temple of the
I also don't know if they'll ever. They probably can't even part with the name. Like they could retheme it or like add it to an existing area of the park per the map, but they'll probably still call it Colorado Adventure forever because it's iconic. It's just too. It's just, you know, they could never do away with that.
Next up, so we talk about
Temple of the Lift Hill. We talked about in Wu's Town.
I think it's time to talk about some Black Mamba.
Is it time to talk about Black Mamba? Okay.
Black Mamba.
Full disclosure, Black Mamba was my favorite coaster at the park when I went in 2013, and then we went to ride Taron, and Taron dethroned it, and now I think Black Mamba is back pretty close to the top for me. Our ride on it was so good.
The one thing that's hard about Phantasialand is separating what's objectively the best and what is your favorite.
Yeah.
Because this is one of those parks where like everything is really, really good. I feel like sometimes I have favorites, so I'm like, yeah, well, obviously it's not like the best thing here. I know that. You know what I'm saying? But the Phantasialand is one of those things where like every ride is really, really good. So everything could be the best ride there. And so having a favorite and it being the best are like the lines are blurred for me. I think that the best product they have is probably still S3E because of how detailed it is and how like revolutionary it is and how it's like, spoiler alert, half dark ride, half roller coaster, launches. Like it's really, 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 really cool. But I think that the favorite may be Black Mamba.
Yeah, for me,
because I love a naturalistic edge.
Riding Black Mamba this time felt like it just hit me so differently. It felt like I had this feel of nostalgia, this love for a traditional B&M invert, and like so much love and respect for the way that this ride was executed.
Black Mamba was the first of like what I call the big three. Black Mamba introduced the idea of like the land and the ride. I mean, I know that Wuzetan introduced the land and the ride being the same thing, but like Black Mamba kind of like the outdoor version of like the world building that they've done. I think Black Mamba started that. Black Mamba has like this hotel.
I remember
and, like the whole theme
when
area,
they were building Black Mamba,
and it's like built into the ground. And in fact, like when you are driving on the little roads, drive right underneath like the walkways that pass. It's crazy, incredible how to fit it in. And then like the half inversion after the 0G roll is literally like a couple of feet away from a bus stop outside the park. You would never know. It's dumb how good that ride is integrated. And that was the first time I think that the park really like built something that was integrated with the ground and like public infrastructure midway. And that kind of started, I think that's the inspiration behind Taron and F.L.Y. I mean, without Black Mamba, we would have never seen Taron and F.L.Y.
Absolutely.
ever. And I really have much more appreciation for it. And now they redid the rock work on Black Mamba since our last visit. They started working on it, but they weren't finished with it yet. Yeah. And now they finished the rock work.
They were so happy with the fulfillment end of Klukheim that they
redid Black Mamba.
The rock work redone for Black Mamba.
Which is really nice. And I think overall, Black Mamba's naturalistic edge and having grass and having like the trees grown in now, and then the suspended bridges that go around the ride's queue just so you can go into the station, and the waterfalls, and then having the detail in the rockworks that the train flies by at like 50 miles an hour, and it's almost you can't even appreciate it when you're on the ride. You can only appreciate it off ride. I feel like the tunnels that or just the walls that the coaster trains fly by so closely. Really highly detailed, beautiful, beautiful ride. I would say probably my favorite.
The whole area,
and it's just like a really like snappy, good old school B&M invert. Despite
the whole
it being
area
like
is
part
beautiful.
Of the second
the
wave.
landscaping is so lush and stunning. We'll talk more about landscaping with or lack thereof with F.L.Y. But something that like really gets me with the Africa area, because I would say that the Africa area is my favorite area of Phantasialand. In addition to Black Mamba being my favorite ride there. Is I just love the naturalistic edge of it, and the landscaping, the foliage is something that I really crave in a theme park setting. And when foliage and landscaping is not part of the package, I feel like a lot of times it's something that is just glaring, like it's just noticeably missing, just like for me.
What are you looking up?
I'm just looking at pictures of
Black Mamba
when it was under construction.
Shout out to the person working on Black Mamba. So currently there were only signing rows because of COVID, but we were a party of 2 and there was a party of 1 in the front row. So he put us in the front row, which is really awesome because that ride, obviously like almost every invert is better in the front row.
Yeah. Getting a front row ride on it, and then it was like the best ride ever. I was like, wait a minute.
Let me ask you this, babe. How do you think of it compared to Nemesis and Osiris?
I think it's my favorite invert, and I think Nemesis is a really close second. Nemesis, of course, was like this. Nemesis walked so Black Mamba could run, kind of thing. Like,
do you think the power trio is Osiris, Black Mamba, and Nemesis? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Although there's some other inverts that would have something to say about that, like Montu, Alpengeist. Monster.
I almost like put them in different categories because I feel like Black Mamba, Nemesis, and Osiris are like in the same like size category, and then you've got like the big bold American B&Ms, and I guess Cartoon too, but like Cartoon, Alpengeist, and Montu, I feel like those are their own like trio of godness, but they're kind of like in a different scope.
I think a lot of people. One of the things that's really great about Nemesis is how the layout feels so unconventional. Compared to later B&Ms, the fact that it has like such that shallow drop and it goes right into a corkscrew and then a helix down into a barrel roll and then the loop is like right in the middle. I mean, that's something that's really special about that ride, whereas Black Mamba follows a slightly more formulaic with a tradition, but it's nice having that first drop.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying. But what I like about Black Mamba is there's a tunnel between every element.
Well, yeah, what I like about Black Mamba is the finale of that ride really like kicks it into another gear. Like you do your usual B&M stuff, but it's like highly themed and like good pacing, and then it just does like a crazy figure eight and helix, and like, but it's all long. In the trenches.
It's a nice length.
So like you do your last corkscrew, and like, all right, that was crazy, but then like you're still flying, and you're still flying, and you keep going until like you enter another tunnel, and it's the final tunnel, like then you hit the brakes. But overall, it's one of those rides where I think that when you think it's over, it's definitely not over yet, and it's really rare for a B&M. I feel like B&M's like you kind of know when the ride stops. Yeah. You kind of like you reach the end of your pacing. And I think it's over, with
Nemesis, it's like they blew the shit out of a wall. They took a little hill and like blew it up and put the coaster in there. And I think Phantasialand took it a step further by building this coaster and then threading the whole midway around it. Like they dug really deep, built this coaster in it, and then like at halfway up, the whole station, the fact that the station for the ride and everything is basically underground, it's under the midway, instead of like with Nemesis where you're kind of looking into the valley and the queue and stuff goes through and it's sort of elevated and like bridges and catwalks and stuff. But with Phantasialand, you don't even really appreciate how far below midway level you go on that ride until you're riding it. When you take the staircase down into the station, that you're like, oh, we're underground, and then you turn the corner and you pop up the lift hill, and you're like halfway up the lift hill, and then you're just now getting to the point where you're over the midway.
It was like the level of Chapas is like midway.
Yeah,
really about how much. And I think of all the areas in the park, Africa is the one that has the most levels going on.
Yeah,
Africa really is dug the deepest. It has like. Gluheim has like 2 levels, I would say, of like walkway.
Mexico actually might have. Mexico's got like 3. Mexico is.
So does Africa, though. I mean, I guess both of those because they like border each other.
Yeah.
But it's really impressive. You can like really walk above, and you can see like you're already in Africa, but you're looking at Talikon, which is not African themed, even though it came with like the Black Mamba setup.
Yeah.
And then you have a level below that, with like where the queue is and everything, and a level below that where like a station, the exit, and everything is. And then they were able to fit restaurants. And then there's the level above where you pass through the loop.
Yeah.
That goes to the hotel. So like I would say there's almost like 4 levels of infrastructure.
It's like a lasagna.
And like in between that is like weaved this B&M invert. Super impressive. Super
just
cool.
Just the clearances. Every turn on Black Mamba is a foot chopper. Every second of that, or every inch of that ride feels like they took the dirt all the way up.
It has a really low height ceiling for B&M inverts, actually. I'm technically way too tall for it, but I always find my way on that.
Feels like you are, for a majority of the ride, you were really scraping the dirt on that, and it really elevates the speed factor, intensity factor.
100%. And now, last but not least,
the
elephant in the room.
So, we talk about Fly.
So, where do we even begin? I guess we'll just like enter the
because obviously this isn't. If you listen to us, this isn't the first or the second or the third time that Fly has been brought up.
And we did a whole special episode on it with Sven, Nadja, and Jan from Break Section. So we've already focused on it, but I think we come from a bit of a different standpoint. Yeah. We're experiencing this a couple months after the hype. We're no longer like, oh well, let's not give spoilers territory. I'm ready to give some spoilers. That episode doesn't include some of the really crazy things, and I want to discuss them this time around. So definitely go back for like the whole look at the area, like really like an hour detailed review. We're just kind of discuss kind of more of the details that weren't discussed there, because we really didn't want to give too many spoilers. But overall, let's just start with the area. The area is themed to Rockburg, which is a futuristic. Kind of old Berlin, industrial age, steampunk area where Fly is
highly industrial steampunk.
Highly industrial.
Whereas like Ride to Happiness, which we had just ridden, is like what I like to call cottagecore steampunk. Yeah. Where it's copper and smokestacks, but there's fields of flowers and waterfalls and stuff.
There's no plant inside in Rockburg.
That's my number one complaint about Rockburg is that there is nothing there is alive. It's all there isn't even any fake plants in Rockburg. It is industry, like a truly automated industrial. It reminds me of those depictions of the future, like back in the day when the idea of the future didn't necessarily involve things that were organic. Either because A, that just wasn't cool and futuristic, or B, because we thought we would have just killed the planet by then. Either way, Rokeberg is completely devoid of foliage, which that's not going to bother a lot of people, but for me being me, I was like, wow, there's literally nothing alive here.
At the same time, that's also why it's so impressive that Rokeberg is so detailed, because generally speaking, I think the most detailed lands around are generally stuff like Pandora, in my opinion, you know? Where I'm like, wow, that's super detailed, but that's because there's million little plants.
Yeah.
Now, Rokeberg, I would probably say, is the most detailed theme planet I've ever been to.
Yeah, it is the single most detailed.
There's details everywhere you look. There is some sort of like significant detail.
It really feels like you're in like a film set where everything is, all the props and stuff are all there to recreate a society that's fully functioning around you. Not just theming, but like everything. There's construction and there's stuff. There's like these steampunky machines that are parked and ready to pour asphalt to create more midways and stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's really no end to what in that area is theming.
Another thing I find really cool about this area is this is the first Phantasialand area where the queue is hidden to the point you don't know where it is until you are in the queue.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, the entrance to Fly is kind of like towards the back of the area, and you climb up the stairs, and then you enter this like steampunky world.
Once you find the entrance, you're kind of just like, all right,
like nowhere near the actual queue, which is funny.
Yeah.
Because once you find the entrance, you make a complete lap around the entire area, underground, above ground. Like you do the
literally
most.
Like, where is this going? There's some really cute scenes in the queue too. Some of it is just getting to enjoy views of Fly that you wouldn't necessarily.
And it almost reminds me of like a Halloween haunt where like you are just like in this narrow hallway, but like the entire thing is the narrow hallway. There's like no switchbacks really, except for when you get to like towards the station. So let's just talk about the ride. So the queue itself has a great view of the ride. You pass by the ride 1,000,001 times, so you can get some great little videos off of it. And then eventually you make your way around the entire area. You pass by the hotel, which is Hotel Charles Lindbergh, which is a not nautical, what do you call that? Like a pilot, like a space pod.
Aeronautic
pod theme.
Aeronautical.
Exactly, these little pods. There'll be an update on that on the website. I think there's already one extra on there from James. Anyways, and so then you go around the area with the queue. There's some cute diagrams around the place where you peek into like a little, explorer's office, whatever. And then you make your way all the way back towards the station, which includes passing right by the launch. You see the trains like launching in your direction, really cool. And then you go underground, and then like the station is like at least like two levels below.
There was definitely there's things that you're putting together in your head when you approach this ride, because you know where the first launch is, the way that it's suspended over the midway, and then you come down to loading. And you think like, where
in the world are we? How
do we connect?
Because there's so much infrastructure underground that you don't realize. Like when you're walking through Rokeberg, you're walking on top of the ride. Just
like Black Mamba again.
Yeah, exactly. So you're walking like above the ride, and so you make your way down and you go by the water and you spiral down. Because when you're walking in the area, you can see like some of the final brake run area and like the transfer tracks and stuff. Well, not really transfer, but like where the return to the station is. It's like way deep below.
You can see
the rest of the land. You can kind of like peek down into like
how do you
valley.
get from point A to point B? Like where do you go to get to the start of the ride? But all is revealed. You come in, great loading setup with like the station and the valet.
Yeah. So first you come inside. And there's like a set of switchbacks where they play in 4 languages to pre-show on 4 different screens, which is really cool. It's kind of themed to like this kid in Old Berlin or Rokeberg, whatever, who sees a flyer of like these like jetpack, public transit, whatever, learn how to fly. And so he puts on his aviators and he goes in and like he takes on the task. And that's what we're about to do.
Yeah, the theme here is...
The theme is loose.
You're on a jetpack.
Because you're on a jetpack, like public transit-y thingy. And that's how I'm going to describe it.
Yeah, it is a little ambiguous, but I think that's for the best.
Because you do your valet and you drop off everything, you get a little wristband. That wristband is used to unlock a locker on one side.
It's an RFID locker,
We did this
too,
before Velocicoaster did it, honestly.
Yeah.
You do your RFID, you open your locker on one side, put your stuff in, go through metal detector, go to the station. When you exit, in the exit station, you walk by the same lockers and you unlock it with your thing. So like it's a 2-sided locker before Velocicoaster did it, in case anyone's wondering. And When you get to the station, it is split up into 4 queues. They do it that way so they can, because they have 4 trains, they just load 1 train out of a queue at a time. So they can store more people in there so that the valet can keep moving. So they can store 4 trains worth of people waiting and I'll load them pretty quick. Sometimes they'll use 2 queues to load the entire train. So like one queue will become front half, the other queue will become back half. There's 10 cars, and how it works is the cars roll into the station sideways. So they are so the track is 9 degrees twisted, and the trains are on that upright facing you.
It feels a lot like Forbidden Journey loading.
Exactly, except
it's a train, and it's 2 people, and it parks.
So then you get assigned one of 10 air gates, and every air gate is right in front of 2 seats. And then the cool thing is when the train moves in, it looks like a steampunk metro station.
Yeah.
The train was like
There's like LED track lighting that follows the train in and changes the color of the whole station.
And then
it parks.
Like it's like it feels like a public transit, like metro underground station.
Yeah.
Which is why I call it a jetpack public transit.
Yeah.
I swear the theme inside there is like a laboratory meets public transit, 100%. So like you load in and then you sit down. So you walk straight ahead of you, like you step 1 step ahead of you. You turn around, you sit down, and then you move your legs onto the side of the leg restraints, and you just push them in, and it immediately locks them in. So there's no like physical movement at all. Like the restraints come down on you.
So simple.
It is like a completely simplified version of any other flying coaster.
This probably goes without saying, but this is the flying coaster perfected. And we're not just talking about the ride theme or the layout or any of that. I mean, we're taking it down to the mechanics of this. This is the premium flying coaster mechanism.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think one of the coolest thing about this is that without this mechanism, the operations on flying coasters are never good. Even USJ, one of the most visited theme parks in the world, can't get their shit together on Flying Dinosaur. It's a nightmare.
It makes B&M flyers seem so time-consuming and convoluted.
The original Vekoma Flying Dutchman are even more time-consuming, but Vekoma really came around and perfected their own product, and now they can run 4 trains on Fly.
Because this thing you dispatch, it's no big deal. It all feels static, like you're on a normal roller coaster. The rotation of the ride into flight position happens.
Well, that's what the coolest thing is. So like you board and then like you take off like almost like a Forbidden Journey, like Alex said.
You're going,
and you go sideways.
Along sideways.
You go sideways through a dark ride.
It's a dark ride.
So that's the coolest thing. Like this opened the door to flying coasters being way more than just a flying coaster.
Yeah.
Now a flying coaster can become a flying theater. It can become, it was
a whole ass dark ride at the beginning before the first launch. That's really my favorite part of the whole ride.
Yeah, it's really cool because you sit sideways and your feet are suspended and like you're kind of just like making your way around. You go past like a lavatory and then you make your way upstairs. So you're moving upward because again, you're like far below ground level. You make your way up and you pass by a couple of really cool like high spinning themed elements that like light up, become ads. So there's like interactive like holographic ads that advertise like special goggles, Rookburg, the flying machine, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you park for a quick second in front of a giant screen that faces Rookburg. It's like actively living, working, people are working, steampunk everywhere. And then right after you park and it's ready to go into launch, the track goes from sideways to suspended.
It's so seamless.
It's seamless, and then the trains at the exact same moment rotate, so you're facing forward on the suspended track, and without even stopping.
It is such a swift
without
moment
stopping, the whole 10-car
suddenly
train
we were in flying position, and we were like
launches,
and then it just
it's
just
like
takes right off.
Jetpacks turn on.
Yeah,
and it's a really long ride, mostly focused on laying down, which is kind of where our criticism comes in.
This ride is really intense
like it's so
on your abdomen and your core
a little bit.
and it's the visuals.
The nice thing is though is that like the handlebars are located on the lap bar.
Yeah.
So like you are able to like hold almost like a jetpack. Like you're not holding on like close to your head. You're holding on like right up your hips.
Yeah.
So you really get to push yourself up a little bit if you wanted to. Which I like that freedom. There's a lot more freedom than a B&M. And the seats are separated more from each other. So like you really have a lot of range of freedom
and the distance between vehicles is longer.
Yeah, so there's no feet.
You're not in your right. Yeah, you don't really see people's feet.
The trains are really long, which is also that like when you're in the back, you always have the whip effect.
Yeah.
To the point where like whipping effect on a flying coaster of that length, it's just too intense. Like it's not very rideable.
But yeah, the forces on this where
you have like a really good air time.
This is one of the most intense roller coasters I've ever ridden.
It's really intense. It is not very rideable.
There's not a moment of rest or there's really when you're in the barrel rolls and you're on your back for a split second, it's the only moment you get where you can kind of relax your muscles. But it's a ride that is just very, very intense on the body, and it's intense.
I think the cool thing is that like you make your way around the area, and like you really get to enjoy so many elements, like the fountains enclosed by the water,
the fountains,
and then
you're
like
the steam
through, and you dive through a helix underground, and there's this underground launch that's really, really intense, and the launch
and then it takes you uphill.
And like so, it's like a launch lift. It's like a launch, and then like the hill is also launched.
And then you take off, and you get airtime.
You get mad airtime.
It's a flying coaster with a vertical, well, not a vertical launch, but a flying coaster with an uphill launch into a top hat,
and it's like
over a 5-star hotel, and then it takes you down. And it was.
And then it does a couple more like even more interactive things, like you really hug the walls and like flies like right across roofs of buildings. I feel like you can touch.
Riding it was right up there with the 4D coasters of like feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, there's points where you level with the midway where like you are inches from the gravel that's also next to the midway, and then the finale is like a dive underground, and then you have a corkscrew that flies over the roof of the Uurwerk restaurant.
Yeah.
And then you have a helix upward or maybe downward a little bit over these like shooting fountains.
The fountains are motion sensitive and they'll hit you.
And then the finale is literally you like going off the water, and then you dive down. The final drop is into like this underground tunnel, the lowest tunnel of the entire ride, and that's where
finally brings you back down
the
to
final
loading
brakes
level.
are. And the cool thing is that it's kind of themed to like a landing strip, so these lights, interactive lights, move with the train. And it's like on the ground, so you see them under you.
And then before you know it does
without stopping
with the flick of a wand.
Without stopping,
you just flip up.
Suddenly you're sitting sideways.
Yeah.
And this track is sideways because you're like this happens while the train is in motion, so there's no stopping.
It happens so fast, and
especially in the front row.
Your body has been through so much that I can't even remember the point where you go from like in the brakes, face down,
I'm so excited.
And then before you know it, you're just like a snap.
Yeah,
and you're sideways again. You're upright,
in the
sideways.
front row, like you touch into this dark tunnel, and the lights are turned on.
And then you can see the people in the queue watching you. And I love watching people coming into the brakes of that because there's so many people who are just like completely overwhelmed by what they've just experienced.
Well, right, but like what I like is so much like being the actual ride and not being in the queue is that like you have those landing strips, like this dark tunnel gets lit up, and you just fly through the tunnel. I mean, you're slowing down, but you're going really fast, and then you just hit that weird turn, and like within a split of a second, you're just moving like high speed sideways. You're just like make it like the station.
Yeah, you make like a 90-degree left turn, and then you pull into the station.
I think my favorite part of this ride isn't even the part where I'm flying. I think the favorite part of the ride is where it's the
transitioning,
the show, the area, the transitions, the light effects. It is just like an overall product where I'm like, this is Phantasialand's best work. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Maybe not because it's really, really intense.
It's too much.
So talking about it right now, I'm like, yeah, this is like my favorite thing there.
But do I think about it every day? Maybe.
Oh my god, always. So hopefully they didn't give away too many spoilers. And then like at the end of the ride, you're in a different station than the takeoff station.
Yeah, you go to disembarkment.
So like you take this, you go back up to where the lockers are, you grab your stuff, and then diagonal staircase takes you up to probably the entrance of the ride is. And that's that. But that ride is like an experience all the way through.
After the first ride, I was like so blown away. I was like, wait a minute, we need to. So we got right back in line the second time. We did
actually, yeah.
And even though it was an hour wait the second time, it still didn't feel like my body had enough time to recover. Because then when we rode it and we came off after the second ride, I was like not feeling well because it was so much. This is more intense for me than like X2 because I know how to ride X2 and I can anticipate all of it.
Also, X2 is over way sooner.
Yeah.
Once you get off the
4D coasters,
it's over pretty
don't
quick.
even feel as punishing on the body.
I think the main difference is that Fly is first of all launching flying coasters are very intense. I mean, I'm so glad it finally happened because I feel like it was always meant to be launched. I think that's the first thing I said. It felt so natural launching. I was like, wow, this coaster should have always been launched. Like,
coming
this is like, I'm just like taking up.
The second launch, and you transition up into the upward part of the launch, I thought my face was melting. It's
so intense.
I was like, oh my god.
And then there's the like continuous like being super close, like all the themed elements because flying coasters, everyone's flying, so like you're laying flat. So like the envelope is even more squat. You're always like way close to the ground. We have some really cool pictures on the coasterkings.com where like you will literally see the people flying like underneath the launch and like next to the queue and over the gravel, and you're like, how does this fit? Like how did they make this happen?
I remember like the sounds that I was making on some of these sharper turns and stuff. They like weren't even human.
Oh yeah, it's like the turns are the size of
This
a
ride will
it's like a 10
they're
vehicle
gonna,
train rolling
take
through.
these rides. Like the moments on this ride will physically take your breath away, and you're just like left in the final breaks, like
Holy shit! Yeah,
like trying to gather yourself and not being very successful because it was.
it's funny. I feel like now I think back to it and like literally talk about the ride. I feel like I like it even more than I did the moment.
In the moment,
Sometimes the ride, like, and this is something Alex and I talk about on our like never-ending daily like coaster talks. Because even off podcast, like all our conversations all day long are
we
like
just talk about roller
always
coasters
theme parks,
constantly.
as you can probably figure. And sometimes we like tell each other like, oh god, we should just record this whole thing we just talked about. Would have been a great episode.
Yeah.
But one thing we always talk about is like how great a ride is. Kind of depends on like what you think about it like a couple of weeks later.
What's the ripple effect of this experience?
You know, because sometimes I ride something like, "Oh, this is really great," and a year later I kind of forgot what it's about and don't really care. And then there's rides that I just didn't think about much in the moment, and like a year later I'm obsessed with them. I'm like, wow,
F.L.Y was almost too overwhelming for me.
It was like the process in the moment, but now I'm thinking back at it, I'm like, yeah, this is great.
That ride lives. That ride really prospers in my memory.
Prospers in your memory.
It really lives a good life in retrospect, and it makes me. All I can think about is how excited I am to ride it again, even though in the moment, especially after the second ride, I was like, I don't know if I can ride that again.
It's too much.
That was a lot.
But yeah, overall, I think that Phantasialand did themselves, and it really kind of makes Klugheim feel really basic, and makes Taron feel very family friendly.
Taron definitely. Suddenly, Taron does feel like a family coaster.
You're
It
like,
feels,
this is kind of mild.
Suddenly, it feels.
And like, Klugheim has a lot of rock work and like some vegetation, but overall it's all kind of like the same thing everywhere.
Is it silly of me to feel like Colorado Adventure is like the more intense ride than Taron because?
Oh, I don't think so.
Taron,
especially not because Taron's launches are like not even that
Taron really protects your body from laterals. Like there's I love the transitions and stuff that the ride has, but Colorado Adventure will like throw you into the side of the train. Yeah. It'll throw you into your riding partner, and like Taron doesn't do that. It's not that kind of ride. So in a way, Taron feels like one of the more comfortable and pleasant rides in the park because it doesn't put your body through a lot. Whereas Colorado Adventure will beat you up.
But like it's painful
and then
because
F.L.Y.
it's really forceful.
And then F.L.Y. will. I feel like F.L.Y. just like turns you to mush. I felt like my internal organs were all just like exploding and.
So overall, what is your top 3 of Phantasialand after our 2021 visit? Yeah.
The ride that I enjoyed the most there personally for me is Black Mamba, but F.L.Y. is absolutely their best coaster. It's their best attraction. And then Colorado would easily round out the top 3 for me.
I would agree. Exact same thing. It's like you have your favorite versus best. I don't think Black Mamba is by any means the best. I still think when we're going to talk about like best overall products and integration, it's F.L.Y.
We would be
F.L.Y, Taron, Black Mamba. I mean, in the order that they came. You know, like it keeps getting better.
We'd be remiss to say that F.L.Y. isn't like a quantum leap in technology. It's not just a launched flying coaster. It's also a flying coaster that has perfected the ride system. Even if it was just the way that the ride loads and unloads and transitions from loading to flying with a traditional lift hill, I mean, that would still be a huge breakthrough.
I want Disney to take this ride concept and turn it into a more family-friendly Iron Man
Give
coaster.
us Iron Man.
Where they can literally just start off the ride as a dark ride and turn it into a family-friendly launch coaster. I mean, it's high capacity.
Yeah.
If Tron can exist with like 14 passengers a train, F.L.Y. can exist as
It feels like the way I feel about F.L.Y. I have fond recollections of like Disney's greatest projects, most of which are Vekoma, but like things like when I think about Hyperspace Mountain and Tron and like where my expectations are for Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like you can tell that this is the kind of stuff that Vekoma concerns themselves with at this point. Is like
if you give Vekoma money, they can make it happen.
Premium,
and Disney and Phantasialand are like prime examples.
World's great. I mean, this is F.L.Y. is just one of the greatest roller coasters in the world. Like it feels like everything about it just feels genius. And
I'm not saying good thing Conda flooded, but like good thing Conda flooded because we actually made it over. Because Phantasialand wasn't on our itinerary. It was completely out of the way. We had to drive 3 hours there and then 5 hours to Paris the same day. We weren't planning on going when Conda was still like way closer. But Conda, Walibi Belgium, unfortunately went through a mass flooding, and they're reopening next month, which is really exciting. But that's why we went to Phantasialand. We said like, hey,
Walibi Belgium instead of doing next Belgium.
Instead of doing Fly in May of 2022, when is our next trip we kind of planned, let's do Fly now. Let's just do it now, and then next trip we'll just do a different park. And I'm glad we did, because I think Fly is a really important part of the modern coaster conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that unlike the new Vekoma Loopers, which there's many of them, the fact that Fly is the one of its kind, its only thing, I think it's important to discuss, especially because we've ridden a lot of beat 'em Flies. I think we have all the big ones. We have the only one that we don't have that's custom is Harpy.
Yeah.
But we have Star Sky Ripper. We have Flying Dinosaur, Tatsu. I mean, we rode Tatsu on a weekly basis. So it's
Acrobat. Like, these are the really important ones.
So like the big boys we have, and I would handily say that. Despite Flying Dinosaur being a little more comfortable because it's not quite as intense, the best flying coaster in the world
is Fly. And it's not even a fair fight. It's not even a close contest.
It's just different flying coaster,
the brilliance
different level
of the system,
it's
the
new.
launch, the combination of applying the launch mechanism.
The launch really does make a difference.
And
it really does.
And having, because you know what, flying coasters, like the lift hills on flying coasters, suck.
I think I mentioned earlier this episode. As we wrote it, the first thing I said after launch was like, these should have always been launched. These should always have been launched.
These should have been launch coasters. Like the way that Intamin was building launched inverts in the late 90s.
It should have been
launched flying coasters should have been.
It feels way more natural.
The whole point from the get-go.
It really feels natural.
So,
having said that, despite the area not being natural, but the ride feeling natural, that's how we're going to end our episode. Mm-hmm. Just make sure that you check out all the other episodes we have of the season. We are about to finish season 3. We have 2 more episodes after this, including Disneyland Paris and then the finale episode, which will be, I'm going to reveal the theme here, Time Traveler at Silver City versus Time
Ride to Happiness.
At
Tomorrowland. Yeah.
So that's going to be the last one, and then we'll take a little break. We're back with lots of cool stuff in season 4.
We have to finish putting our house together, so we have to take a break.
Got to that. We obviously have work to work, our actual jobs.
Yeah.
Because we don't monetize that much. But if you want to support us, go ahead and either buy some stuff from our shop or leave a good review on Apple Podcasts. That will definitely help us out. Visit thecoasterkings.com. We have at least 2-3 articles a week. We have our weekly crown ratings, which are live every single week. So make sure you check that out. And thank you for tuning in. Bye.